The prevailing standard treats hesitation as discipline, delay is framed as care, revisiting choices is framed as rigor, postponement is framed as restraint. Under this standard, commitment is expected to arrive only after full internal agreement. Decisions are permitted to wait until they feel settled. Movement is justified only when certainty appears stable. Silence before action is interpreted as responsibility. The standard allows choices to remain open. It permits reconsideration without limit. It tolerates pauses when direction is requested. It accepts revisions after statements are made. Within this view, a person may slow responses in conversation. They may defer answers when prompted. They may reopen resolved options. They may suspend action while reviewing alternatives. This conduct is not marked as refusal. It is not labeled avoidance. It is not treated as indecision. It is categorized as selectiveness. The standard carries social legitimacy. Institutions reward it, professional environments accommodate it, personal relationships learn to expect it, language reinforces the standard, taking time is approved, thinking it through is praised, not rushing is considered prudent. The standard appears balanced, it presents itself as neutral, it claims to protect outcomes from error, it signals seriousness without urgency. Under this rule, hesitation does not signal absence, it signals process. Delay is not absence of direction, it is framed as refinement. The standard applies broadly, it covers decisions small and large, it governs speech, action and commitment, it remains in effect without time boundary. Within its scope, waiting is permitted indefinitely, the option to pause is never revoked, commitment remains provisional, resolution is allowed to stay pending. Hesitation is not a sign of care, it signals missing authority. The governing principle is structural. Decisions hold weight only when measured against something prior. Without that prior measure, delay has no standing. It becomes duration without form. This reframing removes status from waiting. Time alone grants nothing. Repetition adds no legitimacy. Review does not deepen authority. Under this principle, hesitation is not interpreted by appearance. It is read by alignment. Where alignment exists, delay remains bounded. Where it does not, delay expands without resolution. The principle shifts judgment away from surface behavior. It does not evaluate speed. It does not assess intention. It examines order. A decision shaped before exposure carries contour. One shaped after exposure remains provisional. The difference is not effort, it is structure. This reframing strips virtue from suspension. Patience is no longer assumed, restraint is no longer inferred, waiting stands on its own, authority relocates here, not in the pause, not in the review, in the presence or absence of measure. Where no measure precedes action, hesitation accumulates, it repeats without settling, it revises without closing, it preserves motion while withholding commitment. The principle does not accuse delay, it does not correct it, it removes its explanation. What once appeared selective now appears unanchored, what once appeared careful now appears undefined. The behavior does not change, its meaning does. This principle does not instruct action, it does not compel immediacy, it clarifies what grants a decision weight. Without that weight, hesitation remains hollow. This standard exists to stabilize judgment before exposure. It provides form before contact. It allows action to carry coherence across time. Without such a standard, choice reacts to pressure. It bends to context. It shifts with audience, mood, and timing. A governing measure prevents that drift. It anchors decisions to something fixed. It limits revision without forbidding reconsideration. The function is containment. Options are narrowed before they appear. Evaluation is completed prior to demand. Action arrives already shaped. This structure protects continuity. What is chosen today does not contradict yesterday without reason. Statements do not require retraction to remain valid. Commitments do not dissolve under inspection. The standard also regulates pace. It separates delay from suspension. Waiting becomes a defined interval, not an open field. Time no longer substitutes for judgment. Social order relies on this function. Predictability replaces uncertainty. Responses become readable. Positions remain legible even under pressure. Respect follows consistency, not from speed, not from force, from alignment that holds. The standard absorbs friction. When challenged, it does not require defense. It already exists. It has already filtered the choice. This reduces surface negotiation. Debate does not reopen settled ground. Conversation does not stall on undecided ground. Movement proceeds without rehearsal. The function is not rigidity, it is clarity. It does not eliminate reconsideration. It prevents endless suspension. Without such a measure, hesitation accumulates. Each pause creates the need for another. Each revision weakens prior position. Structure erodes quietly. The standard exists to prevent that erosion. It holds shape when attention shifts. It preserves order when pressure arrives. It makes delay finite. Where this structure operates, hesitation loses authority. It cannot extend itself indefinitely. It cannot masquerade as depth. It becomes visible as unresolved. The standard does not command action. It makes action possible. The principle replaces a permissive view of delay. It displaces the assumption that time refines judgment. It removes the belief that reconsideration adds authority. Under the broken standard, hesitation is tolerated without limit. Under the principle, hesitation has no status on its own. It carries no weight unless anchored elsewhere. The earlier standard treats waiting as neutral. This framing treats waiting as undefined. One preserves openness, the other exposes absence. The broken view elevates process. It values revision. It protects optionality. It allows decisions to remain provisional. The principle withdraws that elevation. Process does not confer standing. Revision does not increase legitimacy. Optionality is not authority. Where the broken standard reads pauses as care, the principle reads pauses as unmeasured space. Where delay once appeared disciplined, it now appears unbounded. The former approach centers feeling, comfort with uncertainty, relief from closure, avoidance of premature commitment. The reframed view centers structure, reference over reflection, measure over motion, form over duration. Previously, consistency was expected to emerge. Now consistency is either present or absent. It does not develop through waiting. It does not accumulate through repetition. The broken standard allowed decisions to be shaped in public. It tolerated revision under observation. It accepted drift as refinement. The principle removes that tolerance. Shaping occurs before exposure. Revision loses its protective status. Drift is no longer disguised. This contrast does not introduce pressure through force. It removes shelter. It withdraws the cover that delay once provided. It leaves hesitation without a role. The old authority softened expectation. The new authority narrows interpretation. What once passed as selectiveness now stands without attribution. Nothing is demanded. Nothing is corrected. Only the frame has shifted. The two standards cannot operate together. One allows delay to stand unchallenged. The other removes its authority. Under the older frame, hesitation remains protected. It carries explanation. It retains legitimacy. It is given time. Under the reframed view, that protection thins. Delay no longer explains itself. It does not defend its presence. It waits without cover. This creates strain. Familiar allowances weaken. What once passed without notice now draws weight. The pause remains, but its meaning shifts. Nothing has been enforced. Nothing has been demanded, yet the ground has changed. The earlier standard offered relief. It reduced exposure. It softened expectation. It postponed definition. The emerging standard withdraws that relief. It does not accuse. It does not compel. It simply stands. Between these frames, hesitation lingers, not corrected, not justified, only observed under a different measure. The old language still circulates, so does the old permission, but it no longer holds unopposed. This tension does not resolve. It holds. It persists. It narrows space. Delay remains possible, but it no longer arrives alone.